And joining us now, all the way from the USA, is James from BigBlue.com. You can follow him at Trifecta24. James, how are you?
What's going on, guys? How you doing?
Doing absolutely brilliantly. Like all guests, we always like to start. Tell us a bit about BigBlue.com and where we can find your stuff.
A little bit about Bleedbigblue. We're based out of Brooklyn, New York. We follow primarily the Giants. We pride ourselves on not suffering from the dreaded delusions of grandeur. Just some Giant fans are way over the top. We base ourselves in reality. We call a spade, and you're going to get it straight from us. We appreciate you having us on.
No, we appreciate you being on. And, I hit you up about a week ago, and I think it's your site. I've been going nuts on it, going around. Now, I'm a massive Cowboys fan, as I've told you, so we should be mortal enemies. But I feel like because we got the same name, that it's just not going to go that way. I feel like this is just a good friendship on the way.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we have fun with this stuff. I mean, we enjoy knowledgeable Cowboy fans. You guys have some, delusion of grandeur fans. Is like everybody has them. But anytime you can touch base with somebody who's down to earth, can talk the game, be passionate about their team, but still have just keep their head in the game during the conversation, it's always a pleasure. So yeah, we'll keep it light.
Yeah, exactly. Well, let's get into. So we're doing our NFC East review. What's your thoughts on how the Giants are going to go this year? Strengths and weaknesses. Where's your concerns to start with? I guess.
Well, my concerns are stemmed off of how last year ended. To be honest with you, I think if you look at our team as a whole, they brought back the defense, 11-5 team, to bring back the defense. And if you looked at us last year, where was their struggle? It was the offense. The last 6 games, they didn't score over 20 points. They couldn't put points on the board. My concern is that I think that they addressed every area of need that they needed to. I think coming into the season, when you looked at it, we said, they needed to maybe some more wide receivers, some more weapons on the offensive side of the board. They bring in Brandon Marshall to go opposite of Beckham. Brandon Marshall has never been a number 2 wide receiver before. He's never seen one-on-one coverage like he's going to see. We feel that's an upgrade. We also feel that Thielen is an upgrade, right? As a blocking tight end to be able to, run the ball a little better, have some balance. Perkins, I think, is an upgrade in the running game, and they bring in Evan Ingram. My concern is this. Going into last year, the maturity level of Odell Beckham Jr., I think that you need to see a big step up from him. I hope that Marshall has some influence on that. But I think all the pieces are in place to compete at a high level and compete for a Super Bowl. But as you guys know, one bad apple it can destroy a locker room, so to speak. So I think we're cautiously optimistic. But, again, still a lot of questions to be answered for this football team. The tackle spot, the Giants said to Bobby Hart and Eric Flowers, every expert and podcast and anyone you speak to going into this season said the Giants needed to upgrade a tackle. Giants told everybody, no, we don't. We are content with what we have. They went to Flowers. They went to Hart. These guys stuck around in Jersey. You're at the Giants complex all offseason, studied film, committed to their bodies to get better. And, it's now time to put up or shut up. All the pieces are in place, and now you got to just go win some football games.
Does it concern you that, you mentioned Odell Beckham, which I think is a great point. He's an extremely talented player, but his attitude can hurt him at times. Does it concern you that Brandon Marshall in the past hasn't got this great reputation of being a good locker room guy, and that could actually have a negative effect on him?
I think that, that's a great question. I don't see it as a negative, because I think if you get Marshall in a snapshot, right? If you get him for a season or 2 and you're not committed where those problems can come down the line, I think when you looked at his relationship with Fitzpatrick and the Jets when they were competitive and things were going good, I think everything was okay. And I think he was a pretty good locker room guy. And I think last year when you looked at the circus that happened in that locker room and the injuries he was going through, it went a little sour, and that causes people to jump back to when he was earlier in his career. Everything that we've seen since he's been here, every word that he has said so far has been everything that you wanted to hear. He's focused on a ring. That's why he's here. He's never been to a playoff game. That's why he's here. So you hope that again, this isn't a guy that's going to be here 3-4 years from now. So our hope is, and again, you never know. With guys like these, you never know. So I don't want to act like 100% certain here, because one bad thing, one bad question. He's already walked out on an interview this week, whether that was right or wrong. But I think that if you can get him for a season focused or 2 seasons at most, I think he would serve as a positive. I think he could be a positive in how he's prepared. He was quoted as saying that he wouldn't have been in Miami. That wouldn't have happened if he was here last year. So, hopefully that resonates. It's going to be very interesting to see how Brandon Marshall and OBJ, how this chemistry works out. It's one of the storylines going into the season.
Certainly will be, and going into camp as well. But there's something I think that I'm certainly very interested in. That's the person throwing them the football. Eli Manning is probably the elephant in the room. I think his production, I think you probably agree with me, was pretty well off from what you would have hoped last season.
Yep.
And if you look at some of the, like a Pro Football Focus, who I think over-metrics some things a little bit sometimes. I think you're better off just to watch it. But
I would agree. But still, I still look at them. We still go by them for the most part. So yeah, I get what you're saying.
Yeah, and they've got him, pretty low across the league overall rankings wise. And I'm sure you're not particularly excited about bringing in Geno Smith as a potential backup if he had to play. I think you're in a horrible place. But do you think Eli can turn it around from the last couple of years where that production has been sliding off a bit?
That's the hope, right? I mean, no one knows. I mean, he is older now. He's 37, 38 years old now. I mean, the window's closing. We'd be lying if we sat here and said that, Eli is going to continue to play and may not miss any. Who knows, right? So I think that, again, the window is short. I think that if you've surrounded him, I think even in 2007 and 2011, when he did win the Super Bowl, I think the thing about Eli is I don't think he's good enough during the course of a 16-game season to carry a team to the playoffs by himself, right? But I think if you surround him with enough talent and you get him into the playoffs, a switch goes on. And even in Green Bay last year, you can't put that game on him. He was throwing strikes. So I think that Eli is a funny character. I think you could look at the numbers and get hung up in last year, but I think the receivers hurt him last year. I don't think Cruz can get open. I think when you couple that with the offensive line problems and having to get rid of the ball a lot quicker than he wanted to, the receivers not being open, not having a tight end, not having a running game, I think that factors into it a lot too. But if you can get them in and they're healthy, with OBJ and Beckham and Ingram and these guys, if he gets into the playoffs, he'll be a tough out. And whether he puts up 4,500 yards this season, I don't know. But if the team as a whole can get him in, if they get into the playoffs, if they get into the round, if they get into the tournament, he's got a shot. He's got a fighting shot. I wouldn't bet against him. Let's put it that way.
Well, he's shown in the past that he can do that.
Yeah, exactly.
The biggest question I have for the Giants, and I'm a bit of an offensive line buff. I'm about the only person who enjoys offensive line in Australia. Eric Flowers really concerns me. His lack of pass protection ability. He's not a bad run blocker, but he struggles to get into his sets. He gets overpowered by bigger DNs, and he gets rushed by quick DNs. It's a real concern for me with him as your starting left tackle, as you said, where Eli Manning needs time to throw the ball, and his lack of success last year wasn't all on him. And you're 100% right there. Victor Cruz was not up to it last year, and Flowers was terrible. Now he's going to be playing on the left. Yes. I just can't see that being a good thing.
Well, I think a lot of things need to let's start here, right? First of all, they reached for Flowers. Okay?
Yep.
Flowers should have been drafted somewhere in the mid to late first round that year. Everybody had Flowers pegged as a lot of potential, raw, needed a lot of work, probably projected as a right tackle better than a left tackle. And the Giants, again, told everybody who knew better, no, we like him here. He's our guy, and they reached for him at 11. So this kid had a lot of pressure thrown on him that probably wasn't the best fit for him, in all honesty. Okay? Last year, I agree, a lot of problems. Now, it didn't look good. But if you look a little closer at things, when Pugh was healthy, his numbers and his ratings were a lot better, right? I think that not having a blocking tight end or a capable tight end, at that matter, right? I think that cost him as well. If you look at the offensive line, you want chemistry, right? I feel like he had chemistry with Pugh because he played a lot better. If Pugh's out and you don't trust the guy to the right of you and you don't trust the guy to the left of you, you're in trouble. So I think a lot of factors came into it. Now, am I comfortable with him going in? Here's my hope, and here's the hope of all Giants fans. And this is all it is right now, it's hope. The Giants went to him last year at the end of the season, and they had a conversation with him, and he's a 23-year-old kid. If you look at his body, there's a picture out where you can Google Eric Flowers side by side, and look at his body last year at the end of the season as opposed to this year in OTAs. It looks like, from the outside looking in, that he took that conversation seriously. He put in the work. Supposedly they didn't leave. Him and Hart supposedly did not leave the complex all offseason.
Oh, man, look how much weight he's lost. He looks fantastic.
Right?
Yeah, just looked it up.
He looked amazing. Now, does it transfer to the football field? I don't know.
Well, that's the million-dollar question.
So, that's the million-dollar question. Am I happy to see that the kid took it seriously and he put in the work? To me, that says a lot. And it gives me a lot more hope than I had last season going in, that maybe he's a young kid, maybe the light's going off now. Maybe the Giants, said, hey, here's the line in the sand, kid. You're with us or we're going to get a tackle. And if during what he did in the offseason showed them that they're comfortable with it, we're going to see in 2 to 3 weeks if they were right, guys.
Absolutely.
But, that's the best that I can tell you. We're hoping. Right, I feel like he has a lot of talent. I feel like there's upside there. You can't go any lower than he was.
Yeah, well, you don't go in the first round. You don't go in the first round of the NFL draft if you don't have talent. That's the bottom line, especially in the top 12 picks.
Yeah, so it's there, and now can they get it out of him? And you see that picture, and you hope that maybe the light switch went off, and he said, you know what, I have to commit to this a lot more than I have been.
Yep.
And hopefully he steps up. If he doesn't step up, you could throw all the offseason acquisitions and the defense out the window because if you don't have an offensive line, forget it. It's over.
Yeah, exactly. You won't get too many arguments from us on that one. Turning to best case, worst case scenario, where do you see the Giants finishing the year record-wise?
Great question. We argue about this all the time on the podcast. They were 11-5 last year, right? So you look at that and you go, okay. They brought back and they added to the defense. So they brought back everybody and they added some more pieces. I think they upgraded with Goodson in the middle. I think this kid is going to be very good in the middle at the middle linebacker spot. I like what they did. And here's the other thing: second year playing together, they should have better chemistry. They should get better. Eli Apple should take a step up. They're deep in the secondary. They got a solid front four. Defense should be fine, right? So the question is, does the offense join the party? Okay, going into the season, we knew the tackle spots were a question. If everything goes right, if Marshall pans out and the tackles step up and Perkins can give them balance offensively, there's no reason, talent-wise, when you look at this roster, that they shouldn't be competing for at least a first-round bye, in my opinion. A wild card spot should be their goal should be division, first-round bye in some way, shape, or form. Does it pan out that way? I don't know. But when you look at the talent on the roster, that 11-5, I would say they got a chance to be 12-4. And I would be surprised if they went anywhere. But again, things can break the wrong way. You get some injuries, but still there's enough talent there to go 9-7. So I think regardless, they're competing for a playoff spot, either a wild card, division title, or the upside, the flip side of the coin is the most positive it could be if everything pans out. Maybe they're competing for a 1 seed. But the talent's there to compete for a Super Bowl, guys. just like there is in Dallas right now. It can go either way.
It'll be a very good division race this year. I think the NFC East is
definitely.
They had probably 3 down years, but I reckon the 5 or 6 years before that, they were the most competitive division in the league, and I think they're heading back down that track again as well.
Yeah, and the thing about this division now is when you look at Philly and you look at Washington and you look at Dallas and you look at the Giants, is you can have a 12-4 team and end up winning the division at 9-7 because the division is so damn tough. So, you may have going into the playoffs, you may have to play in the wild card round, but you may be more battle tested going in. You may be fine playing in the wild card round. You may not want the week off. The week off. And sometimes it serves teams better. Football season, it is a marathon, man. It is not a sprint. And if you're playing right at the right time, no matter who you are, and you've been through some wars and had some things go wrong, sometimes you're better off than that team sitting in the one spot. So, who knows? It's going to be fun. It's going to be a lot of fun this season.
Like always, it's the longest off season in sports, and we all hate it, but it gives us something to drive to. Sort of the last thing we want to finish up on is looking at the division as a whole. How do you see it washing out? Obviously, Dallas, full of young talent, good offensive line, sort of came out of nowhere. Washington, still, I can't work out how they haven't given a contract to one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL. And then the Eagles.
Yeah, what's going on there, right? Like
that one's a mystery. And then the last one, is just the Eagles, who seem to try and win the offseason every year, but have struggled the last handful of years. I know it's a big, long question, but where do you see the 4 teams falling this year?
Well, I'll do this quick, right? I don't know who's going to. I'll put it this way. I think it's a 2-team race, right? I like Washington. I like the Eagles, but I still think they're a couple of pieces away, right? So I think when you get down to it, it's right back to where we were last year. And here's the question I have for Dallas is the defense, is the secondary. It's the question mark. And if they're giving up more points, I think a lot of their success last year, and it's genius to them, they played for the roster that they had. And it's great. You get a lead, you run the football, you protect the quarterback, you don't turn the ball over, you win football games. It's a beautiful thing. You dictate pace, you win time of possession, the other team's off the field, you win football games. It's a beautiful thing. If you give up more points, can you play like that? And if you give up more points, can Dak consistently make plays in the passing game now year 2, now year of film on them? A lot of questions there too. So I think their talent, the best offensive line of the division goes to Dallas, and I think that you can win a division with just that. So I think this Ezekiel Elliott thing with going on with 1 or 2 games, I think that can end up biting them, because if you lose to football is a weird sport. You end up losing in week 1 to a division opponent, it could bite you in week 16. So I think it's a 2-team race. I think that it's Giants and Dallas, and I think that we'll be sitting here. I think we'll be talking in late December. It'll still be up in the air, and there'll be a couple of division games to decide it come late December. And it can go either way. It's the coin. I think both teams make the playoffs, though, in the end.
Yeah, couldn't agree more with you there. And what about the Redskins and the Eagles? I saw an article the other day where it was a Philadelphia Eagles writer, I've forgotten his name now, that said that he would take Carson Wentz over any other non-quarterback player in the NFL right now. I thought that was a ridiculous statement.
I don't even listen to anything that comes out of Philly. It's just let them talk. You just let them talk, and it's like that one relative, right? Everybody has that one relative. They walk in the room and they start talking, and you're just like, oh, it just emotionally drains you, and you just leave the room and giggle, right? You're like, oh, that guy. Oh, he's so cute. That poor little fella. No one pays attention to them. Until they win something or do something, really, like, just let it go in one ear and out the other. I can't. I like Carson Wentz, but I don't know if he's the second coming. He had a good season. I think that when you look at everybody's fired up about Alshon Jeffrey. How many games is he going to play?
Yeah.
And Torrey Smith, talk about the captain of running 8 yards free and then just like dropping a wide open pass. There's a reason why some guys are free agents, So I don't know if everything fits there. I think they have a pretty good team. I think both of those teams miss out, though. I think the competition in the NFC is going to be too good, though. I think if you're giving the Cowboys or the Giants the division and then either one who doesn't make it the wild card, I think there's too many other teams that will trump Washington and Philly to get into the playoffs. I think both of those teams end up missing out. 7-9, 6-10, 8-8, somewhere around there, but they're on the outside looking at it.
Yeah, couldn't agree more with that.
Fantastic, James. Thank you so much for your time and your valuable input. Just really quick, tell everybody where they can find your stuff.
Hey, we are at bleedbigblue.com. Bleedbigblue.com. You can find us on Twitter at bleedbigblue.com, and you can find me on Twitter at Trifecta 24. Hey, man, it has been an absolute pleasure hanging out with you guys.
Thanks very much, James. We really appreciate it.
You take care, guys. Be good.
Thanks, mate.